This video is brought to you by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino.
We can run through it real quick. Honestly, I thought the depth chart would come out on Monday. I thought that'd be a little bit more likely for a game week, but Coach Norvell blesses us with a Sunday depth chart. Anything surprise you on this? Anything you were not expecting? Anything you want to talk about?
I guess let's start offense and then go defense. Obviously, we knew DJ would be the starter. I don't think anybody's surprised with Roy Dell and Lawrence Toafili starting. Benson, Brown, Douglas, pretty expected. Same with Morlock. I guess the only thing that surprised me, if I'm looking this right, is Robert Scott not in the starting lineup.
Well, he's
Based
an
off
or. He's an
he,
or.
he is an or, but Byers listed ahead of him on the or, but maybe that's last name alphabetical order. I'm not sure, but offensively, I don't really see any surprises. We'll talk defense in a second, but in just looking at the depth chart, man, I like what this offense has the potential to be. There's not a lot of proven production out there, but there's a ton of potential. And I love having a guy like Ja'Kai Douglas listed there, who is just Mr. Reliable, who has made big plays in big games. You go back to, the 2021 Notre Dame game in Tallahassee, had that like 90-yard touchdown. He's just Mr. Reliable. But then when you add the speed factor of Benson and Brown, man, I like the potential of this offense a lot. Richie Leonard getting the starting job at left guard. The transfer from UF, I like that. Like I said, it's hard to say this offense is going to be elite because we have no idea. But this offense has the potential to be very, very good, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I think that's right? Like the offense should be better than average. And at worst, it's just slightly above average, right? Like it's average to slightly above.
I think it's better than last year was.
Yeah, I can't foresee a situation where we're not able to get some pretty good production out of it. Yeah, Robert Scott, I mean, it's a little covered up there on the screen. You can't see it, but Robert Scott is listed as an or on the right tackle with Byers ahead of him. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me to see any combination of Keandre Jones, TJ Ferguson at right guard, and then Byers and Scott at right tackle. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if you see him rotate a little bit. I think Alex Atkins, what I've been told is Alex Atkins and Robert Scott are extremely close. I don't want to say that there's like favoritism, but I think Alex Atkins really, really likes Robert Scott and wants to kind of give him every chance possible. I know Scott's dealt with some things off the field, nothing to do with himself. He's battled back from an injury. He's had some different things going on. And so hopefully this is the year that he can stay healthy. He can put it all together and get out there and be a pretty productive piece for Florida State. I mean, Robert Scott was listed and mentioned as like a day one or two guy when he first got to Florida State, and like a guy that could project up that high. And I certainly don't think that Robert Scott's there anymore, but a guy that you would like to, I mean, you'd like to get something out of before his final year of football is done. Other side of the line, Richie Leonard, maybe a little bit of a surprise. I wouldn't have been surprised if you saw Keandre and TJ Ferguson kind of be both your guards, but for Richie Leonard to jump up and be able to be in that starting lineup, I mean, I know there was a lot of talk about, when he left Florida and not being any good and this, that, and the other. And, I don't know that Richie Leonard would have started this year. I think that Florida likes their interior. I think their tackles are absolute dog crap, but I do think they like their interior a lot. But Richie Leonard, for the first time, in his college career, will have good coaching now. And so I think that'll help, having a good offensive line coach that doesn't just suck, right? They got two guys over there that can't figure out what the heck they're doing. That'll help him a ton. Also being in a good strength and conditioning program. Everybody that leaves Florida talks about how bad that strength and conditioning program was. Bill Napier will tell you how bad it was. He's gone through two strength and conditioning coordinators just this offseason. So, yeah, I think that if Richie Leonard can just improve a little bit, he still had more snaps than anyone else on UF's offensive line. So, again, they can kind of talk all the crap they want about that. I think he's finally in a good position to be able to maybe produce. Jaylen Brown, a little bit of a start, a little bit of a surprise maybe. Like if you go to the three wide receivers and, Benson and Douglas, I don't think surprises anybody. For Jaylen Brown to be there, I mean, he certainly made some plays and he certainly had some big moments. I think we've talked about this. You've got like 5 or 6, like 2 or 3s, right, on the roster. You'd like to see Hakeem be able to work his way up there, at some point through this year, being a former 5-star. You think about Hakeem as being a little bit bigger than he is. I mean, he really, 6'2", he's kind of in there with just being a tad bit bigger than even Jaylen Brown is. So Hakeem's not like some massive, framed guy. I mean, he certainly put on some bulk there, but you know, I think that it, I think that your top three pass catching targets are going to be Benson Douglas and Morlock, and then Jalen Brown kind of slotted in there too as kind of your deep threat burner type. Um, so I don't know. I'm not ready to sell on the wide receiver group, but we have certainly talked about our thoughts on that room and hoping that we can kind of be surprised with the play that we get out of that. Let's talk a little bit about yeah. Okay, I see a couple of comments about this, and then we'll move on. Yeah, I at the end of the day, I mean, what this is Armelo's third season, is that right?
Yeah.
Not making the two deep. I mean, yeah. I mean, you certainly hope. I mean, there was talk of him potentially not being even on the roster. Post spring. Um, yeah, I mean, his name was never one we mentioned in a practice report. It was never one we mentioned as kind of standing out or making an impact. So probably shouldn't be too surprising, right? Like the guys that we didn't talk about all of spring and all of fall, they're not on the depth chart for the most.
There's a reason for that. Yeah.
The guys making plays are the ones that are there. So yeah, I agree. It's a little discouraging. Year three still not there, but you would hope that maybe you can get it a little bit, get a little burn this year, and then maybe next year being his senior year, or would it be redshirt junior? I'm sure he redshirted 1 year. Redshirt junior year, he could kind of make some noise and be kind of an upperclassman for you. So, all right, let me give a little love, Harlan, to Bet US, and then we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball, Richie. Bet US, you can go there right now. You can bet on the over on Florida State's win total. It's a bet I've already placed. You can see me placing the bet there on the screen right now, over 9.5. I love it. BetUS has a 125% deposit match right now, up to $2,000. That's on your first 3 deposits. So if you deposit $500 today and $1,000 tomorrow, and then $500 the next day, you get that 125% match on all 3 deposits, up to $2,000. They have great customer service. Their website's super easy. They've got more bets on college football than most sites out there that you'll find. Customer service is great. Website's really easy. Go check them out. BetUS. Link is in the description. All right, defensively, Richie, I'll toss you kind of the same question I asked you a second ago. Any surprises over there that you weren't expecting?
Just looking ahead, no surprises on the defensive line whatsoever. One surprise to me is, we've heard great things about Cam Riley, so I'm not surprised to see his name at the top. But seeing the or with Blake Nicholson, that's encouraging to me because, I mean, he was obviously an ultra talented player coming out of high school. We knew he would take some time, but now, he's showing that he could potentially be a starter on what I project to be at minimum a top 15 defense in the country, top 20 at worst. That's very encouraging. Seeing Kevin Knowles with Earl Little is a little surprising. I thought Earl Little had done enough to lock up that starting job solo, but again, just looking at this depth chart all around, we knew it was going to be Fentrell and AZ Thomas at corner. Yeah, man, just looking at the depth chart, not just the starters, but the people behind them has me feeling very confident about what this defense has the potential to be. And unlike the offense, you have a lot of proven talent. Daryl Jackson, obviously, did not play last year outside of the Orange Bowl, which whatever. So, but he's probably got some of the most NFL potential of anyone on the defense altogether. So honestly, not many surprisings. I guess the biggest surprise, we brought in Sean Murphy from Alabama, thought he was going to be a contributor, especially at a position that, you had underwhelming talent at compared to the rest of the roster. To not even see his name on the depth chart was extremely disappointing to me. Just my opinion on that one.
Yeah, and he was another one that we, I'll say this, like in any of the scrimmage reports we talked about or any of the depth chart stuff that we talked about, who was standing out in fall camp, like just wasn't a name that was brought up to me consistently. Now, again, I'll not act like I've seen every practice and certainly haven't been out to any, right? Like I'm, not, Brendan or Chris or Ira or anything that's out there at every single practice. But just based on what I had been told, I honestly, his name, I don't think was mentioned once to me here during fall. Actually, I'll take that back. It was mentioned once as like, man, he's really just up and down, like zero, not a lot of consistency. And so I don't know. We don't get on here and try and like crap on kids when we're doing like scrimmage updates. We just try and tell you who stood out and had a good one. Like you tell everybody like oh yeah, this guy's dog crap or anything. Like, I don't know. That's just not our MO. So yeah, so his name was actually mentioned a little bit, but just, yeah, not in a great way. I mean, you're not going to hit on every portal guy, right? And so, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's a miss, because there are certainly guys that have been hits later on in their time here after coming through the portal. But I'd be pretty surprised if Murphy had much of an impact this year, to not be on the depth chart behind, a lot of guys. And again, I think there's less talent. There's less overall talent at linebacker than there is wide receiver, I think.
Yeah.
I don't mean to, at least wide receiver, like, you feel really good about some of the young guys. You feel good about Benson. Linebacker feels like it's Lundy and then everybody else, I mean, that's not me taking a crap on like Nicholson or Cam Riley or Omar Graham or anybody like that. But, I think to not even be able to work your way into that grouping is a little concerning. Kevin Knowles, yeah, like somebody who was mentioned to me a ton over the last week or two, as really having a good fall. So I guess I'm not super surprised there, but also, like, I think Kevin Knowles had a pretty good camp last year, pretty good fall camp, and then like fell back down. And so, what's the saying, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. But if a guy has a good camp, you can't not put him out there, right? Like that. So, like, what are you going to do? Like, you have a great camp and say, like, well, you weren't very good in the regular season last year. I expect those guys to rotate a ton. I expect there to be situations where they're both in. I expect Earl Little to get a ton of burn. And, these are so much fun to break down. And these are fun to look at. But when you really talk about like what this is going to be, I'm not going to be surprised at all if Earl Little is the starting nickelback on play one, and then Kevin Knowles is in there 2 plays later, or if the inverse happens, like if
Yeah.
Georgia, so it's to me, a position like that is not like Lundy. Like, if Lundy wasn't listed as a starter, you'd be like, dude, what the heck? Like, the nickel corner is something that you're going to see a ton of both guys. Man, Florida State loves Quindarius Jones, who's right behind Fintrell Cypress. Like, they think he is going to be like elite here. And so I'm really excited about him. I know he's a young guy. I know that, you may see him in spots, but they like him a ton. I mean, Richie's completely correct in them liking their defensive line, certainly the starters, a lot. I'll echo the idea of liking the edge depth more than I like the defensive tackle depth. I think we talked about that a little bit when we were grading the position groups. I like Lolo Hea behind Peyton, and I like Byron Turner behind Marvin Jones Jr. I like both those guys a ton. I'm a little less confident in the guys behind Jackson and Farmer. That's not to say that I don't think they can play. I need to see it. I need to see that drop off not be there. And of course, there's going to be some drop off. Those are two of the best defensive linemen in the conference and the country. But yeah, no major surprises. Maybe the Sean Murphy thing is a surprise. Like, looking back to what was it? Spring, because I think we all expected him to be in there. But I mean, I'm glad that Cam Riley has come in and in a very short amount of time, right? He got here over the summer, if I remember correctly. In a very short amount of time has been able to kind of rise up. I mean, that's either a really good thing or that linebacker room is really, really bad. And that's how he was able to do it. So probably somewhere in the middle of those two. So any final thoughts? I saw Jalen Lucas and Roydell Williams back there at kick. I saw Malik Benson at punt return, specialist, all kind of make sense. Who's your first person to take a kick back for a touchdown, punt or kick this year?
Oh, it's got to be Jalen Lucas. I was watching the video of him from Indiana against Purdue just yesterday. And, man, he's a guy that you have all these big-ass, large human beings running down the field, and he just gets lost in the shuffle. And before you know it, you're like, oh, crap, he's gone. Like, he's gone at that point. I do think there will be a house call, at least maybe 2 or 3 this year, and I definitely think Jalen Lucas gets at least one of them.
I'm with it. Yeah, I think Jalen Lucas is kind of my easy pick as well. So, all right, let me give a little love to Garnet and Gold, and then we'll talk a little bit about this Georgia Tech game.